Hello, I'm your host, Kelsey. Welcome and thank you for joining Finance of the Future. Unlock future-ready operations with Agentic AI, a Genpact CFO forum session. In this conversation, we'll explore how Agentic AI is redefining the finance landscape, enabling organizations to move beyond automation toward truly autonomous, intelligent operations. I'm delighted to introduce our speakers, Ed Fitzpatrick, CFO Forum Leader at Genpact, and Patrick Villanova, CFO at Blackline. Together, they'll discuss how Blackline is embedding Agentic AI into its roadmap, how its partnership with Genpact is delivering real-world impact for clients, and what the journey to self-driving finance functions looks like. With that, I'll hand it over to Ed to welcome Patrick and kick off the session.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Happy to be with you today. Again, I'm Ed Fitzpatrick, the current CFO forum leader for Genpact. Before that, I was Genpact's CFO for 7 years. Before that, I was with Motorola for 15 years. The last year, Motorola and Motorola Solutions CFO. Really happy to be with you today, and I'll turn it over to Patrick to quickly introduce himself as well.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. So Patrick Villanova, I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Blackline, as Kelsey just announced. And before that, more importantly, I've been with the company for about 10 years, and I came in through the corporate controllership office. And as a user of Blackline for those 10 years, learning the product, learning its capabilities, it was a great place to start my Blackline career. And before that, I spent 15 years in Big Four accounting, mostly within the auditing and assurance practice. So I'm a lifelong accountant, a CPA, and just really have a process automation and mentality to how I take on my job and my career. So I just wanted to provide a little background there in terms of the last 25 years of my career and what brought me here today.
Well, thanks, Patrick. We had similar beginnings to our career. I was a Big Four guy for the first 10 years of my career as well. So it was auditing background and got into accounting and controllership and then finance over the years. So pretty similar background. So again, really happy to be with you today. Why don't we jump in and share some insights to our CFO and controllership community out there today. So we do seem to be at a point where AI is poised to revolutionize efficiency and insights within not just finance, but in organizations as a whole. What are the key arguments being made to sway the traditionally conservative accounting world that we live in, that AI's transformative power outweighs perceived adoption hurdles?
It's a good question, Ed. And look, we come from the same world. We're change averse. We like repetition. We like process. We want to see it. That's what makes us feel comfortable. That's what allows us to sleep at night. And by the way, I didn't even know that. It's good to see it, two accountants that are CFOs. And I really feel like the pendulum is going to be swinging back to that in the future. We could get to that too. But back to how do we change the mindset of accountants? And the way I look at this, let me explain that a little bit. I think this is the third major change that has occurred within the finance and accounting industry from a technological standpoint. And what I mean by that is, when I started my career 25 years ago, I talked to some of the more tenured partners at PwC, and they told me stories in the early 80s about when Microsoft Excel came out. And from the beginning of time for accountants and finance professionals until that point, everything was done on paper, everything was done on printouts, and then you had to change the mentality of an entire group of people to start putting all that information into a personal computer, let the computer do the math, save it on a floppy drive, and then hope that it's there the next day. Now, look, the audience right now is like, you got to be kidding me. Like, that is obviously, that's embedded into our daily lives. No Excel, like it just seems crazy. But just 45 years ago, that was a major transformational change in the industry that changed technology forever and how we do our jobs forever. So fast forward to the early 2000s. That's when the Blacklines of the world started coming about, where we said, okay, let's take Excel, let's replace it, let's bring higher levels of automation to what we do, And then let's put it all up in the cloud so that you can access it 24/7 and it's real-time information all the time. And again, this audience said, well, no kidding. That's what we do now. Everybody's on that transformation roadmap. But 20, 25 years ago, there was a lot of apprehension around that. There was adoption challenges. But what happened back in the early 80s and the early 2000s is what's going to happen now. The technology just has to prove itself, right? People had to prove that Excel could do math just like a calculator, just like longhand. And then when you got to the early 2000s and you started allowing your hands to come off the steering wheel a little bit as an accounting and finance professional and let SaaS solutions do some of the processing, some of the automation for you, then you'd replicate it through your old manual process that you used to do, and the outcomes were the same. You got comfortable with the technology. So the same thing's going to happen now. Now, granted, this is a whole nother stratosphere of technology when we're talking about agentic AI. We went from hands off the steering wheel a little bit to, self-driving in certain respects. But it's no different. You have an audience that wants to become more efficient, a buyer, an audience. You have people that want to do their jobs better and be less mired in the gruesome details and some of the less desirable aspects to our profession. So we want change. We want to embrace this. The flow of data is becoming overwhelming. We can't do it through traditional technology. We just have to prove it. And I think once agentic AI proves that it works just as well as a live accountant or a live financial professional, that adoption curve is going to become hyperbolic.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I do remember the days of paper, 8-column, 16-column paper. That's when I started with the accounting firm. So PCs were the next year, right? And then it went crazy. So I'm with you. And I do think we're at an inflection point. So agentic AI is shaping the next frontier of intelligent finance. It is. How is Blackline embedding this into its roadmap? And what does the journey towards autonomous finance look like for your clients today?
Yeah, maybe talk about where we are today and some of the things that we're already doing and thinking about. So, there's one element where you have what I would call data exploration or just questioning AI, right? So this is as simple as asking AI questions through a prompt, comparing two numbers to one another, asking why a balance went up or down. Right now, that still requires manual intervention. It requires research. It requires you comparing numbers on your own. But that's a very basic but important use case, something that we spend a lot of time just performing that work manually. Or you're looking at two data sets and you're trying to figure out, okay, here's this data set here and this data set here, and you're trying to find a commonality and you're downloading it into, now you can just say, look, Blackline, I'm trying to look at this data set in this system for which you have a connector, look at this data set for which you have a connector, draw a comparison, draw some conclusions, what patterns do you see? So that's AI that is on the precipice right now, something that we're seeing a lot. Something that we have in place already is something I would call like a risk agent. And this is AI that is embedded in the system that identifies potential risk in a transaction or account balance. So, for example, we have something called Journal Entry Analyzer. And you have an auditing background. I do too, back in the days, or we still do it now, where you have to look at every journal entry and identify the ones that have attributes that have risk or fraud or something incorrect. And you do that manually by downloading the entire trial balance and looking at, well, Journal Risk Analyzer is a plugin into our solution where it looks at every journal entry you record. And you give it parameters at first, but then it starts learning how you're thinking as a controller or CAO on those parameters. And it starts becoming more intuitive about, oh, this journal entry doesn't look like the last 14 months, or this journal entry is an outlier, isn't going to the account that it always did, or this journal entry is really being booked by the wrong person at the wrong time. And it starts to have that intuition and provide you the ability to automatically, without prompting it, receive this information of journals that maybe are a little outside the parameters that you would normally see. Another agent that's out there, they're called optimization agents. So simply put, hey, Blackline, I've got these 3 matching use cases, but this is what I do on a day-to-day basis of my job. What other ideas do you have? Where else could I use matching to automate an element to my analysis, an element to my process. And so it's a little bit similar to the first example that I gave, but this is where AI starts looking at what you're doing day to day, the inputs you're doing day to day, what you're uploading, how you're using Blackline, how you're using Excel if you still are. And it says, hey, I've noticed you've done this the last 40 days in a row. Have you thought about doing this? So that's another level of AI. And then ultimately, where are we going to get to? We're going to get to what I would say configurable agents, where you can design them to almost create a virtual accountant or virtual finance professional to do the work that you're doing right now, which might be highly automated, but we all know you still have to click this or move this or log in here or pull this from over here. There's still some levels of manual intervention with all that automation. Well, if you have an agent that can do that and then notice differences and changes on a day-to-day basis, that's when your job can really be augmented. And you could have what I call a virtual workforce working in the background on maybe the more mundane and unexciting stuff that you do, so that you can work over here on the second screen and be more analyzing, be more influential, interact with management more. Let the AI do what you normally had to do that would break up your day, logging in, clicking things along, moving things along. And that's where we're getting. That's the nirvana that we're heading to.
It sounds like a combination of an execution engine that can do certain things, which is great, but then also an angel on your shoulder, practical examples of angel on your shoulder helping to hone you on what's most important, and also doing some of the things that you used to do so you could focus on the higher end stuff, being business partners, right, for our operating team. So that sounds good. Good examples. Turning now to kind of the partnership that we have, what are some real world outcomes you've seen from combining Blackline's technology and expertise with Genpact's deep process expertise, and how has this partnership accelerated the path to future ready finance?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great partnership, Ed. And look, you got to set it up with saying plugging in technology alone is not going to solve the issues that every finance and accounting function faces around the world. By similar analogy, just having a really great dialed in process with no technology, that's all manual. Well, we know that's not going to work either. You have to have the two hand in hand. And so, just personally, just looking at this partnership, things that I've seen, wins that we've had mutually in this partnership, I can name at least two or three off the top of my head, multi-billion-dollar organizations that had severe process issues. They had multiple ERPs. They had manual issues everywhere. And they came to Blackline and they said, hey, we want to buy Blackline to solve X, Y, Z. Well, before you can do that, you should maybe look in the mirror and say, are these processes designed correctly? Like, is this the best way I could be doing my job on a day-to-day basis? That's where Genpact would come in, bringing that process expertise, bringing that accounting and finance expertise, and saying, look, if you are going to build this, ideally, for a highly automated environment, this is how you would build it. This would be your process. And then once you get that groundwork in place, once you do that work, then you bring in Blackline and you automate the process that you just helped this company implement. So that's where that partnership really, really thrives. That technology alone is not going to solve this. You've got to have an expertise in what we do on a day-to-day basis. So that's process level, that's industry level, that's domestic, that's international, that's all around the world. Genpact brings that. And when they bring in that process expertise, then we plug in on top of that. And that's when you really see quite remarkable transformation.
Yeah, it seems to be, it's very logical to me that the two working together are better than independently, right? Because of the different areas that we focus on, but also a lot of it comes together, to your point. So really helpful. And again, good practical examples of how we've worked well together. So last question. As organizations move from task automation that we talked about before to end-to-end decision automation with agentic agents, what role do you see agentic AI playing in enabling self-driving finance functions?
I would say, if I had to have the headline here in terms of how agentic AI is going to change, right now, even with all the automation advances we've seen in our industry over the last 20 years, it is still highly reactive. right? You implement, you run the automation, you wait to see what the reconciling item is. Or you wait and then you book the journal entry. Or then you wait and then you run the matching use case, you have outliers, you run it again, then you investigate the outliers. So the industry right now, while highly automated, is reactive. And we all know that being reactive is generally not your peak level of efficiency, right? Because you're always waiting for something. What I see, or we see, Agentic AI doing is the role of every finance and accounting professional becoming proactive. You always talk about, hey, when you hire somebody, are they a good self-starter? AI is always a great self-starter, 100% of the time. That's exactly what you want to look for. So it's the ultimate employee that augments your existing skill set. It is running all the time, looking for, okay, looking at journal entries, running reconciliations. That's one I left out in terms of our ability to automate fully the reconciliation process, touch free. And that's going to be game changing. When you think about how much time is lost on a day-to-day basis, waiting and reacting, or reacting too late, or finding something out too late, versus having a virtual employee, for lack of a better term in AI, an agent running in the background, constantly looking for not deficiencies, looking for anomalies, looking for unreconciled items, looking for better match use cases. You have something running 24/7 before you even get into work or log in the morning, starting your day, pushing your day. So you're now leading in, you're leaning forward. And I think that's the main headline here in terms of how transformative this can become. If you just think about your day to day and that something is out there, technology is out there running in the background all the time, looking for the issues you normally have to wait to find. I think that's one of the biggest drivers behind agentic AI.
Effective and tireless. never sleeps.
Yeah, well, and so think about that. Effective and tireless. So you got me going. So people get tired. AI does not. And so it's running those processes in the background, things that can wear a person down. No offense, the mundane. And I've done it, you've done it, it's part of the career. Take that out and just imagine how much more fruitful, a career will be in finance and accounting, that if you could offload that, delegate that, and then focus on being an influencer in your organization, being part of management, being able to analyze and provide insights human to human, while all the hours you normally spent getting there are being done by an agent. That's huge. That's huge for the industry. It's huge for retention.
Yeah, that's where we want our people. Really helpful. Really helpful. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for being with us and for sharing your insights. I really enjoyed the dialogue and speaking with you, and we look forward to speaking with many of you again on our next CFO Forum review. Back to you, Kelsey.
Thanks, Ed.
Well, thank you so much, Ed and Patrick, for sharing your insights on how AI is shaping the future of finance. There's obviously so much more innovative collaboration to come from the Genpact and Blackline partnership, and we look forward to hearing more in the future. But for now, I want to say thank you for driving this powerful conversation, and thank you to everyone here for joining us today.